ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ सहनाववतु
भवतु
भुक्तो
भुनक्तु
अवीर्यं कर्वावहै
करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
विद्विषावहै
विद्विषावहै।
ॐ
ॐ
शान्ति
शान्ति शान्ति
शान्ति
शान्तिः।
शान्तिः. Okay, so we had completed the 20th verse in the last class, and today we are looking at the 21st verse, which we will chant. So please unmute yourself. Agamane manonyatra
अगमन्ये मनो यत्र
sampratam cha sthirikritam
साम्प्रतं
साम्प्रतं
च
च
स्थिरीकृतम्
स्थिरीकृतम्
evam yo vetti dhivrittim
एवं यो
एवं यो
वेत्ति
वेत्ति
धीवृत्तिम्
धीवृत्तिम्
soham ityavadharaya.
सोऽहमित्यवधारय।
सोऽहमित्यवधारय.
So a good idea of the Shastram is being presented. So understanding the Anatma is not difficult at all. Right? Understanding Anatma is a simple matter. If you want to say this mobile, understanding this mobile, the mobile is observed and I am the observer. So that is the logic. I am observing the mobile, I am the observer, the mobile is observed. So the conclusion is that I am not the mobile. Right. Now again, there are problems of a different kind with this. A mobile being lost is not an issue, will not disturb my mind. My mobile being lost is a problem, right? One mobile being lost from somewhere, who bothers? When your mobile is lost, your mind is disturbed. So it's a form of mamakara, right? Now, if you look at Sanskrit grammar, mama is the sixth vibhakti, shashti vibhakti of aham. It denotes the possession, sambandha, the genitive case as it is called in English. And therefore, according to the to grammar, mamakara is only the vibhakti of ahankara, which is a modified form of ahankara. That's why mamakara is used there with ahankara. What about aham? The word aham, shastric aham, I, is avyayam. It has no vibhaktis at all. So avyayam means not affected by any of the vibhaktis, indeclinable, right? That which does not change. And therefore understanding the mobile or the pen is not very difficult. With a little bit of objective analysis, in fact, with a little bit of very objective analysis, I can understand that the body is not me. The hand is hurt means I say my hand is hurt. This hand is hurt. I can say this hand is hurt. I can say my hand is hurt. One is objective recognition of the fact that the hand is a part of the body. One is mamakara saying this is my hand. So body is capable of being understood in an objective manner with a little bit of effort. But when it comes to the mind, it's a lot more complicated, right? Because most people, when they say I, they mean the mind, the Sukshma Sharira. Slightly refined people, okay. The very basic people will say my I means body. If you're slightly more refined, you'll say it's the mind, body is not me. And therefore, in this mantra, Shankara tries to explain that it is not the body alone which is anatma, it is the mind also which is anatma. Right? So here you have to imagine that somebody, let us say your spouse, has asked you something, right? And what were you doing? You were busy with the, newspaper or something, or you were watching TV, and your spouse came and said something, and you didn't reply because you were preoccupied with whatever you were doing. So then she comes and shakes you. Yeah, wake up. I talked to you. Why didn't you reply to me? So what do you say? It's given here. Me manaha anyatra agamataha. Me manaha, my mind, agamat, wandered into anyatra, some other place. And then if you want your, food for the day, you say, samprap, sampratam cha sthirikritam. Now, however, with effort, my mind is now available, and you tell me what you want, I will listen to you and do that. Right? So this is what is said here. So the entire first line is within quotation. And it is being said by us, by me. Why? Because, and the idea is, when you say my mind was not available, it was wandering, what are you actually saying? You are saying, I know that my mind was wandering. And when you know something, that something is an object of your knowledge. You are the subject, that is the object. The subject and the object can never be one. So you have to clearly understand that whenever you say my mind wandered, or my mind was busy, I was preoccupied, is a different matter. My mind was preoccupied is a different matter. Whenever you say that, evam yo vettihi, the mind has to be understood as different from you, as an object of your knowledge. Evam yo vettihi, the one who knows in this matter, in this manner, what does he know? Dhini vrittim. Dhivrittim is the conditions, the various thoughts in the mind, the various states of the mind. And what are they? Agamataha, it wandered, wandering thoughts. Sthirikritam, steady thoughts. So whenever I talk of the mind like this, in this manner, the mind is a object. Right? Because for you, you are examining the mind, and therefore the Sakshi is witnessing the mind. Sakshi is the subject, the mind is the object. But when you say that is a nice rose, or that was a good movie, or this is good strawberry ice cream, it is not the Sakshi which is predominant here. What is predominant?
The mind.
The mind is predominant because the mind has become the instrument to interact with the world. And therefore, it is easy to mistake the mind as me. When the mind is interacting with the world, it is easy to say that I am interacting with the world. Like the contact lenses, or even a better example is the intraocular lenses, which you put when cataract is removed, because they're intimate, they're inside your eye, and you never remember that they're actually lenses because your original lenses are gone, and you are seeing through these artificial lenses, IOLs. And because they are so close to you, so intimate to you, how often do you remember that I am seeing through my contact, to my IOLs, to my intraocular lenses? You don't remember. You just say that these are my eyes only. Right? And therefore, when it's an instrument which is very close to you, like the lenses or the mind, it is easy to forget that it's an instrument and that you mistake that instrument for yourself. And so, ham iti avadharaya. You should assimilate this thoroughly, that I am not that instrument. I am separate. Ham is different. Meditate on this. Now we look at the next verse, 22nd verse. Swapna jagarite suptim
Swapna jagarite
सुप्तिम्
bhava bhavau dhyam tatha
भावा भावौ धियान् तथा
yo vitya vikriya sakshat
यो वेत्य विक्रिय साक्षात्
soham ityavadharaya.
सोऽहम् इत्यवधारय
So the very important is because it is defining aham, atma, Brahman, aham, I, as avastha traya sakshi, the witness of the three states. And this is a concept which we use everywhere, right? Where because through the avasthatraya inquiry only, I have to claim that I am not the part of the avasthatrayam, but I am the Turyam, the Sakshi, the avasthatraya Sakshi, and therefore different from what I am observing, right? Remember that if you identify with the avasthatrayams, any of the avasthas, right? Three avasthas, what happens? You will be ahankara. And depending upon which avastha you are identifying with, you will be Vishwa, Taijasa, or Prajna. Very important idea. If you are involved, if you forget that you are the Sakshi, you get involved in the Avasthatrayam as Ahankara. So you are either Vishwa, Taijasa, or Prajna. Therefore, Avasthatrayam belongs where? To the mind. They don't belong to me. The Jagrata Avastha in which I am Vishwa is the fully active state of the mind. The sense organs contact the external world and association of I, the Atma, am with all the three bodies. I don't remember I am Sakshi and therefore I identify Ahankara, the reflected consciousness. In Swapna Avastha, I am Taijasa, but the mind is partially active. Why partially? Because the Indriyas, they don't contact the external world. They are resolved. And because your Sthula Shariram is sleeping, it is not active. Therefore, the mind is partially active. And all the Golakams are there in the Sthula Shariram. Therefore, they are not available to you. Therefore, the five Pramanams are not functioning. Therefore, there is no intake of any knowledge. What is active? Only the Chitta, the memory part is active. And that from samskaras which have been recorded during Jagrata Avastha, the memory projects the internal world, right? So that also you are associated with something else. In Sushupti Avastha, the mind is not there, neither fully nor partially, it is resolved. So there are no thoughts. But when there are no thoughts in Sukshma Shariram, we have to remember that Karna Shariram Vrittis are also there. And there are only two types of Karna Shariram Vrittis. What are they? Karna Shariram, remember, has got two Vrittis.
I slept well. I am basically.
Aham kimapi na janu.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
put them into words.
Yeah.
That same line, yes, from Tattva Bodha, you put them into two words. Two types of Vrittis. What are they?
Ignorance.
Agnanam.
Ignorance and
Sukham.
Sukham,
Sukha.
Ananda, right? So remember the Tattva Bodha has to be recalled throughout your Shastra study. Okay. So there are Karna Sari Vritti is only two. Ajnanam, Ananda. I know nothing, I am happy. Right? Now, if you look at the three avasthas, you can read them as active mind from the point of view of the mind. Okay, look at the avasthas from the point of view of the mind only. What are they? Jagrata avastha, active mind. Swapna avastha, partially active or passive mind. And Sushupti avastha, inactive mind. In all the three avasthas, who am I? I am the knower of all the avasthas. I am the illuminator of the revealer of the active mind, the revealer of the passive mind, the partially active mind, the revealer of the inactive mind. And therefore, these conditions, activity, partial activity or passivity, and inactivity of the mind, who does it belong to? It doesn't belong to me. These conditions belong to the mind alone, right? And when the mind is angry, You have to always remind yourself, I am the revealer of the angry mind. I am not angry. I am the revealer of the angry mind. The mind is angry. So, swapna jagarite suptim vettihi. Consciousness illumines swapnaha and jagaritaha, the avastaha and suptim, sushupti also. So consciousness illuminates or reveals all the three avastas of the mind. And these three avastas can be presented in two forms. Dhyam, bhava. So dhyam bhava means presence of thoughts in the mind. And dhyam abhavaha, absence of thoughts in the mind. Right? The dhyam abhava means what? There is blankness in the mind. So the three states from the point of view of the mind, he reduces into two. Right? What is there? What are those two? Dhyam bhavaha. Dhyam bhavaha represents Jagrata Avastha as well as Sushupta, as well as Swapna Avastha. Why so? Because Dhyam bhavaha means presence of thoughts. And both in Jagrat and in Swapna, we have thoughts. Therefore, he has combined in this particular verse, he has combined from the point of view of the mind, Jagrat and Swapna have one common feature, presence of thoughts. So that is one classification which includes both Jagrat and Swapna. And Dhyam Abhavaha, absence of thoughts versus Sushupti. Right? And Shankara writes here, Dhi. The word Dhi has to be taken as Vritti. So Dhyam Bhavaha means Vritti Bhavaha. Dhyam Abhavaha means Vritti Abhavaha. Absence and presence of thoughts. Who am I? I am that Sakshi which illumines, which reveals that Vritti Abhavaha. Why? Because how do you say that I am the Sakshi who reveals? Because if it was not revealed, how can I talk about the blankness when I wake up? Right? So it is a mistake to think, as a lot of Yoga Shastra teachers say, that you have to go into samadhi to experience the mind, to experience the Atma. It's a big mistake to think that Atma is experienced only when the mind is totally resolved, totally silent. Why is it a mistake? Because that Atma which I am is there always. In the chattering mind also it is there. In the silent mind also it is there. That is what we saw in an earlier Upanishad. Pratibodhitham viditam matham. Which means what? In every thought, Atma is present. Every thought that you have, what are you doing? You are experiencing consciousness. And that is why Pratibodhitham matam. Atma is experienced all the time in every thought. It is also only the Sushupti Avastha when Atma, when thoughts are not there, that there is no experience of Atma. But because of the Karma Sarira Vritti, you have to say that Atma records those thoughts. When the mind is awake, the mind records those thoughts. When the mind is awake, those thoughts are revealed to you, to the mind. But the thoughts were there. Otherwise, when the mind is silent, how could you know that you were happy or you had no thoughts? Okay. And avikriyaha sakshat vettihi. Avikriya means without any change. So you can understand that as without deliberation, without any action of your willpower. Sanidhi matrena. So avikriyaha sakshat veti. The witnessing of the thoughts and the absence of thoughts is done avikriyaha, without any action at all on the part of the Atma, without any will, without any deliberation. Sanidhya matrena, witness it is there. And in fact, here we can recall the Tattva Bodha definition of Atma. Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatiriktaha. What does it mean? This is the definition of Atma which we saw in Tattva. Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatiriktaha. What does it mean?
I'm not the three bodies other than these three bodies.
Different from the three bodies. Vyatiriktaha is different. Different from the three bodies. Avastha Traya Sakshi, the witness of the three avasthas. Pancha Kosha Vilakshanaha, different from the Pancha Koshas. So again, the three physical bodies or the three bodies point of view, Vyatiriktaha. The Pancha Kosha point of view, Vilakshanaha, different from all the five koshas also. That is the negative definition. Right? Avasthatraya Sakshi is a positive definition. Then Satchidananda Swarupa San. That which is got the nature of Sat Chit Anandaha. Yaha Tishtati Saha Atma. Remaining like that, that is the Atma. Should not forget. And therefore all these facts, Soham, that I am. Iti Avadharayaha. May you understand, may you meditate on this fact. Very, very beautiful. Nididhyasanam slokas. Okay. Then we look at verse number 23. Yeah. Look at verse number 23. We will chant. Ghatavabhasako deepaha
Ghatavabhasako deepaha
gatadanyo yatheshyate
Ghatadanyo yateshyate
dehavabhasako dehi
Dehavabhasako dehi
tathaham bodha vigraha.
Tathaham bodha vigraha.
So we have to recall here, what is the difference between Sakshi and Ahankara? Unless this point is very clear, you always have confusion. What is the difference between Sakshi and Ahankara?
Sakshi is that consciousness which can be experienced in mind, in one's mind.
Okay. What about Ahankara?
It's the I know. Or
The ahankara, there is a feeling of kartutva,
Okay.
whereas in Sakshi there is no kartutva.
So in the presence of
Kartutva.
Sakshi only, Ahankara is functional.
Okay, try to give a definition by including OC and mind. OC and RM. RM is the mind, right? So define both in terms of OC and mind. When you do that, then some clarity will come. What is Sakshi in terms of OC and mind? What is Ahankara in terms of OC and mind?
Sakshi is OC in the mind, which is reckoning.
Oh, that's very, what you call, it's correct, but you have to be more clearly defining. And what is, anyway, you said that. So what is then Ahankara?
Acharyaji, Sakshi is OC recognizable in the mind and Ahankara is OC plus the mind.
Okay, let's put it this way. Ahankara is OC reflected in the mind. So Ahankara is nothing but RC. OC plus RM is RC, equation we had. When the OC is reflected in the mind, it is called Ahankara, Pramata, the knower. But that OC which is available in the mind is called the Sakshi. So actually it is a Sakshi which is being reflected in the mind. Remember that. That Sakshi available in the mind, which is reflected in the mind, is called Ahankara. When you don't talk about the reflection at all, then that Sakshi, which is Akarta Brahman only, but which is recognizable in the mind, available in the mind, that is called Sakshi. So, what is the difference between Osi and Sakshi?
Sakshi will always be there even when the mind is not there. Only the name will be changed, but Ahankara will not be there when mind is not there.
Fine. But if mind is not there, there is no Sakshi also, right?
It is there, only not recognizable. Sakshi, yes, Sakshi is always there, only not recognizable that time. We shouldn't say it is not there.
Okay. So, Sakshi is Osi, Brahman, right? But how do you recognize Brahman? You recognize it with your mind. Is it not?
Yeah.
If you have no mind, you're a piece of stone, let us say, then you won't talk about Sakshi and Brahman. Though Brahman is very much there in the piece of stone, but you can't talk about it.
Yes.
And therefore, that Brahman which you can talk about is that Brahman which is there in your mind only, which you recognize. Consciousness you recognize in your mind. Why? Because it seems to be localized in your mind. Because the mind is localized, therefore, for you, consciousness seems to be localized. Right? So that seemingly localized consciousness which you can talk about, and the seemingly localized consciousness, you call it Sakshi. Remember that it is that Sakshi because of which you are aware that you have a mind, that your mind has got feelings, that there are three avasthas, that your body are relatives. All this is possible because of that consciousness principle which is available in your mind and therefore seemingly localized. Right? So, therefore, it seems different from the all pervading Brahman. Why? Because of the perspective of understanding that all pervading Brahman through the instrument of the mind, which is necessarily a limited instrument. And the limited instrument can recognize only the limited consciousness in the mind. Therefore, because the mind is used to understand OC Brahman, the difference is there. The difference is what? The mind is being used to understand Brahman. But the mind's attributes are not transferred to Brahman. It has to be very carefully understood. The Sakshi, in the case of the Sakshi, it is the mind which is being introduced, which is being used to recognize Brahman. But the mind's attributes are not transferred. And that non-transferring the attributes of the mind and recognizing that this is consciousness in the mind, that is called Sakshi. Right? It is like we call the space in a pot, in a ghata, as ghata akasha. Why do we call it ghata akasha? Because it has a practical utility. You can fill water in the pot. The good question is it the ghata akasha which accommodates the pot, the water, or is it the pot which accommodates the water? Which is it?
In the presence of Ghatakasha, the pot holds the water. So if pot is not there, water will not be there. But Ghatakasha will be that time converted to only Akasha instead of Ghatakasha.
Very good. So, what is the utility of the ghata akasha?
It enables
You said so. In the presence of the pot, that space, that Mahakasha, which is enabled to hold water only because of the Upadhi report,
Mhm,
that is being called Ghatakasha,
mhm.
So Ghata Akasha can be compared with the mind.
with the mind. Because that Brahman, see, put it in other terms, Ghata Akasha is relevant because it is
Sakshi.
useful for transactions.
So Ghatakasha can be compared with Sakshi.
One second. So Ghata Akasha is relevant because it can be used to transact, hold water. As therefore, Sakshi is comparable to Ghata Akasha, not different from Brahman, but because the Brahman available or recognizable in your mind is the reason that your mind becomes functional. Therefore, just as Ghata Akasha is useful for transactions, but Ghata Akasha does not exist without the pot as Ghata Akasha. Similarly, Sakshi is relevant for transactions, but that Sakshi cannot exist separately without the Sakshi in its Sakshi label cannot exist without the mind. If just as when the pot is not there, you don't say the word Ghata Akasha, you say Akasha, Maha Akasha. Similarly, when the mind is not there, you cannot use the word Sakshi, you have to use what? Brahman. Do you see the difference?
Yes, this example is very appropriate here.
Therefore, but Ghata Akasha is Asangaha, is Shuddhaha, is Nirvikaraha. Similarly, Sakshi is Asangaha, Shuddhaha, Nirvikaraha. Right?
Acharya-ji,
Yes.
so person who dies goes away with Sukshma and Karana Deha.
Yeah.
The Sakshi also travels along because the mind is still, I mean, it's said now, everything goes with except the Panch Mahabhut stays.
Basic mistake you have made. What is mistake? Anybody wants to point out?
Travel.
The
It
Sakshi
leaves, I mean to say, if it is.
Sarvagataha.
is no travel.
Brahman is
Sakshi
always
doesn't travel.
there.
Yeah, in the form of Sakshi, I'm saying, in the form of Sakshi. Brahman is always there,
There is no
just
form
as
of Sakshi. Only when the mind is there, you can call it Sakshi. When the mind is not there, it is Brahman.
so in Sukshma Deha, mind is not there. That's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, Sukha Sharira, very much mind is there. It is the very
So
definition.
when a person dies, like in 12th to 15th chapter, it is said everything goes except five Mahabhut, Panch
Yes.
Mahabhut stays here. So the
Yes.
Sakshi Chaitanya also
You cannot
not
say
the word.
Sakshi travel. It is an
It is
incorrect.
not travel. I mean to say as a Sakshi, the connotation. I mean to say, Brahman is everywhere. I
I don't
understand
think you
that.
should get into that kind of a thing because if you say Sakshi is present in Sukha Shariram,
Sukshma.
is it capable of thought, the Sukha Shariram, without a without a physical body?
No, no.
So the travel state is a state which is very, what they call, difficult to talk about.
Okay.
Without the physical body, it's a sort of traveler who is not available to anybody. We say travels, but not available to anybody.
Okay. The reason I wanted to ask is because we have always said that a person comes with sanskara, it is already there in the mind. So
Yes,
that's the reason.
mind is there very much.
Okay.
Mind is there, and if mind is there, if it is a Suksha Shariram, reflection of consciousness is very much there. But try not to use the word Sakshi because you'll be confused. Is the
Okay.
Sakshi there in the traveling Jiva, or is the Sakshi there in Jiva which is alive and kicking?
Okay. Okay.
But technically, yes, you are right. That consciousness principle enclosed in the mind is very much there.
Right.
But since we don't too much examine that portion, the traveler is not too much examined, in Shastra.
Right. I
It's
understand. We
irrelevant for
focus
us.
on different. Yeah. Focus is
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The,
Okay.
then,
Any,
sorry. Yeah, can we then use that thing to say Ghatakasha becomes, I mean, not becomes in that sense, but merges with Mahakasha, so there is no question.
There is no merger.
No, no merging.
It is just that the container is broken.
Yes, the yes, the pot. Right.
লাগিয়েছিলে মনে নেই দিয়ে দেবো হয়ে গেল হ্যাঁ একটু ড্রপার দিয়েছে হ্যাঁ ড্রপ করে কি
Okay, somebody is
রেখে আবার
talking.
টানটা খুলে দিতে হবে
Whoever is talking, can you please put off your...
কিলো দিয়ে রাখতে
Okay, fine. Now, what is... So we have talked about Sakshi and OC. We've seen what is the difference. There's no difference excepting that in the presence of the mind, the OC which is recognizable in the mind is called Sakshi. Now, so what is the difference between OC and Ahankara? So, Ahankara is the reflection of the OC in the mind. It's called Pramata. Pramata Ahankara is the RC, the reflection of OC in the mind, and therefore Ahankara cannot be there unless the mind is there. There is an invariable association with the mind. Okay. Now again, very careful understanding. We are saying that unless the mind is there, the Brahman available in the mind cannot be called Sakshi. That is a completely different statement from saying that unless mind is there, the reflection cannot be there. So I will repeat. In the case of Sakshi, we are saying the label Sakshi cannot be used for Brahman unless the mind is present. In the case of Ahankara, the RC, I am saying RC itself cannot be present unless the mind is there. Do you see the difference?
Yes.
What is the difference?
So in one case, as you said, that attribute
Correct.
is there.
In the case of Sakshi, attributes of the mind are not transferred to the Sakshi. In the case of Ahankara, attributes of the mind are transferred to Ahankara. Therefore, Sakshi is Asangaha, Shuddhaha, Avikaraha, Nirvikaraha, and Ahankara is the reverse. Sasangaha, Ashuddhaha, Savikaraha. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. So, because of that, because Ahankara has the attributes of the mind, whatever be the condition of the mind, that same condition will be that of the Ahankara. And therefore, how can you have moksha with that? Because as the Pramata Ahankaraha, I am always bound. The Pramata Ahankara cannot work for moksha because the mind has got attributes. The Ahankara has got the same attributes. It is a bond which can never be broken. So as the Ahankara, don't work for moksha. You will never be free. As a Sakshi, don't work for moksha. Why?
You need not.
You need not be. So as Ahankara, you cannot work for moksha. As Sakshi, you need not work for moksha. If these two statements have been understood, that is moksha. So this is what is said in this mantra, very, very beautiful mantra. Yatha ishyate, just as you consider ghata bhasako deepaha. Ghata avabhasako deepaha. That light which reveals the pot. Ghatat anyaha is different from the pot. Right? The light which reveals the pot, Ghatat anyaha, is different from the pot even though the light pervades the pot. In the same way, Dehi tatha aham I am the OC, the Dehi. And what am I? Deha avbhasakaha. I am the revealer of the body, the Deha. And what's my nature? Aham Bodha Vigraha. Vigraha is the very form of. I am the very nature of consciousness, formless. And here I should recall the 5 features of consciousness which you have studied many, many times. So I'll just say it again because we, keep forgetting this. So consciousness is not a part, not a product, not a property of the body. It is a principle which is different from the inert body-mind complex. As an example, just like we say, there is moonlight. But we have to say the moonlight is on the moon or reflected of the moon, but not off the moon, because the light doesn't belong to the moon at all. Light belongs to the sun. Similarly, the consciousness which is there in your body is a different entity, not a component, not a guna, not an attribute. Then consciousness is an independent entity which pervades, enlivens the body. By its mere presence, it seems to lend sentiency to the inert body, right? Making your mind possible of having experiences. The third one we know, consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the body. It is all pervading and limitless. Just because you say consciousness is there in the body as Sakshi doesn't limit the Sakshi, because it is actually Brahman. That Sakshi extends beyond the form of your mind and is not shaped by the form or contained by the form. Then consciousness continues to survive even after the body has gone. Consciousness is eternal. But because the body has gone, consciousness is not recognizable. Just as electricity is there in a bulb when it is fused also. But because the fusing has happened, it doesn't light up anymore. It cannot be recognized. So consciousness survives the death or disintegration or destruction of the reflecting medium, the body and the mind. The surviving consciousness is not accessible for any transactions in the absence of the body, reflecting medium. Not because it is not there, but because the instrument, the body mind sense complex, which is needed to express and transact, is gone. So these 5 features are what point to my true nature. I am that consciousness, eternal, all-pervading, independent, never destructible. And not the temporary, limited body that I think that I am. Okay. Now let us look at verse number 24. We will chant. Putravittadayo bhava
पुत्रवित्ताय
yasya sheshataya priyaha
यस्य
यस्य शेषतया प्रियाः
दृष्टा सर्वप्रियतमः सोऽहं दृष्टा सर्वप्रियतमः
द्रष्टा सर्वप्रियतमः
सोऽहमित्यवधारय.
सोऽहं नित्यवधारय.
So we discussed the Sat Swarupam and the Chit Swarupam of Atma. Now we're looking at the Ananda Swarupam. So this discussion we are having in Brihadaranyaka also nowadays. So Shankaracharya first says that Atma is the most beloved, that I am the most beloved for me. Everybody loves himself the most. So if you are asked who do you love the most, and out of political correctness, as they call it, You say somebody else, the answer is not true. Even if you say Ishvara, I love the most, then also answer is not true. There is only one answer to that question. Who do you love the most? What is your answer?
Myself.
Myself. I love myself the most. And Shastra says if you are not answering this is not your answer, then you are lying or you have not understood at all. It's not a correct answer. And therefore, we saw this earlier also. I'll just repeat. There are three basic divisions in creation. The sadhyam, that is the goals of your life, objectives. The sadhana, the means you have for achieving those objectives. And siddham, the beneficiary of all those goals, I, which is I, right? And between these three, when you ask the question, who do you love the most, you are being asked to decide between these three. Do you love yourself? Do you love the objective? Or do you love the means of attaining the objective? Right. What's the answer? All the sadhana that you love, the means that you love, why do you love? Because they help you in accomplishing the goal, the sadhyam. Therefore, all the sadhyams, the goals, are dearer to you than the tools. The sadhyams are, you love the sadhyams more than you love the sadhana. Okay? Once sadhyam has been accomplished, sadhana loses the value. Your paper cup holding the tea is valuable. How long? As long as there's tea in it. Once the tea is over, you chuck that into the garbage can. Therefore, the sadhyam you love more than the sadhana. Right? Now, this tea is a good example. Supposing I love my tea, and then I have understood that I love my tea and I love my teacup only because it gives me the tea. Therefore, I love my tea more than my teacup. That is established. Now, supposing the tea is giving me severe acidity, what will I do?
I'll not drink tea.
So, what is the choice you're making between what and what?
Sadhyam is not my choice now.
Then,
and then there is no question. The need of.
no. We come to a question. What are you choosing between two things? You have chosen between the teacup and the tea, right? You have chosen between the teacup and the tea and the tea is better. Now, what two things are you choosing? You are choosing between the tea and yourself. Therefore, the yourself is more valuable to you than the tea.
Okay.
Right? Therefore, between sadhyam and sadhana, sadhana is more loved. Between sadhana and you, siddham is more loved. So the what you call flow is sadhyam is dear to me. Sadhana is even more dear to me, but siddham is the dearest. Therefore, what? Among everything, I love myself the most. That's why in the Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we have not yet come to that. Yajnavalkya tells Maitreyi, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Everything is dear to you only because you love yourself. Atmanastu kamaya. Because you desire yourself, sarvam priyam bhavati, everything else is dear to you. So, a very, what they call, unpleasant truth in today's world, but everybody really acknowledges it, internally. No one loves anyone unconditionally because you love somebody only as long as they are a source of joy to you. Right? So here bhava is all the things or beings or people in creation in the form of the sadhya. And sadhana is all the instruments, all the goals, all the means to attain the bhava, the sadhya. So he says, putra vittadayoho. Even things and beings in creation in the form of putraha, children, in the form of vittaha, money, adaya, etc. Yasya sheshataya priyaha are loved conditionally. So sheshataya, right? Shesha means sambandha. Sheshataya means because of the connection to me. And therefore, yasya seshataya priyaha, all these are loved only as long as they are connected to me, as long as they give me happiness. The conditional love is there. And we have seen this in a very beautiful verse. Yavat vittoparjana saktaha स्थावन निज परिवारो रक्तः पश्चात जीवति जजर देहे वार्ताम कोपि न पृच्छति गेहे. Do you remember?
Bhaja
Govindam.
Bhaja Govind.
Bhaja Govinda.
Right? So, drishta sarva priyatamaha. Priyatamaha. Tamaha is the suffix indicating the most dear. So, drishta sarva priyatamaha. I, the Atma alone, am sarva priyatamaha. Am the dearest to me. And knowing this, remember, it is not that you will be selfish. You will actually be more loving and more caring in your relationships. But what is the difference? That if something happens to the relationships, it will not shatter you. So this is the advantage of this teaching, that it continues to keep you as loving and caring and dependable to your family and friends, with the exception that when they go away or they are no longer there for whatever reasons, you will still stand. You will not be shattered. And soham itya avadharayaha. Meditate upon this, assimilate this truth. What is the truth? I am that asanga atma.
Acharyaji, I have a doubt here.
Yes, please.
So when we are telling this I, it's without the this body and that identity, right?
Yes.
Because
Correct.
yeah. So is it not little confusing if we say that myself instead of that, if we just say self? Because when we say myself, yourself, then it brings that identification with that limited body. Of course, without that, we cannot function. But when we are functioning in the world, in that sense, again, we are multiple. And in that, at that time, if I say I myself, I and that with that identity, I love myself most. Then it is selfish.
No. Myself is my real self.
That is what I'm saying. So in that case, is it not better to just use the term self instead of mind?
You have to use terms which other people understand, no? When you talk.
Yes, for them, but for me, I mean, I should only say that self because otherwise there are many self.
No, just say I Atma.
Yeah.
English is a very confusing language, but since we all know English, we have to talk in English only.
Okay.
So remember that any talking is in Vyavaharika. Vyavaharika is always confusing until you remember that I am not the one who talks. I am the one who makes this body, gives the body this capacity to talk.
Yes. Why I ask this? Otherwise, that would be like there are many people who takes this one sentence and then they cite Upanishad or like Shastra and then say, oh, Shastra only saying to be this.
Yeah,
That's
but when that is said, you have to examine the meaning of I. Very often in why are you? Very often in one sentence, the first eye will be different from the second eye and will be different from the third eye. So that analysis power is given to us by Shastra.
Yeah, that is the need of that study also with the Guru.
That is why you need the study. Okay, I don't think we have enough time for the 25th verse, so we can just go ahead with any more questions. Or if you have none, then we can just close it up for the day.
Acharya, may I ask a question? Like we're talking here, I means the real Brahman. That's why I love myself, right? We are
Well,
Brahman. Like
if you say that, there is a confusion there also. Anybody wants to point out that confusion when you say, I love Brahman the most?
That cannot be done. Brahman doesn't need love, or then who is loving?
See, all these are from
There
the
is a
Vyavaharika
differentiation in
point.
that case. There is a differentiation in that case. We are differentiating between I and Brahman.
Yes, that is one. And secondly, whenever you use any terminology, you are using in Vyavaharika. So anybody loving, who is the lover actually? It is the Arsi only. Sakshi is Akarta, it cannot love. It is the principle of Ananda, yes.
mhm.
You can say Brahman is the Ananda principle, the loving principle, which enables minds to love. But Brahman is not capable of any love because it is Akarta basically. So never forget that Sakshi is Brahman, that Sakshi is you are Akarta. Whenever we are talking about anything, emotions, loving, doing, everything is Vyavaharika only. And therefore you are talking about two different things.
Understood, yeah. Thank you, yeah.
That clarity always, and it is the most difficult clarity to keep in mind, let me tell you. Unless you have ages of exposure, it's difficult to, it's easy to get confused when somebody throws a line from the Upanishad at you. Okay, thank you for your patience.
Before we close for the day,
Yeah.
just one more clarification on Ghatakasha, whether it is equivalent to mind, because I could not catch the
Ghata
clarification given by
Akasha,
you.
in that case, the pot, the Ghata is equivalent to the mind. The Ghata Akasha is equivalent to the Sakshi.
Okay.
Because
Okay,
without
thank
the
you.
mind, the Sakshi is unable to function. Without the pot, the Ghata Akasha cannot function. That is why there is no difference between Ghata Akasha and Maha Akasha and Sakshi and Brahman. They are only labels conveying the fact that that particular Sakshi, Brahman principle or Maha principle is capable of transactions in the presence of the Upadhi.
Okay, thank you.
So that label conveys only that. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience. Om 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 Om
Thank
Om.
you.
Thank you, Acharya.
Thank you.